to Music History with Ms. Berman's Musical Mobile Classroom. Today, we are going to be learning about a famous Baroque composer named Johann Sebastian Bach, and he lived over 200 years ago. So today, we're going to do an interview with him. Pretty exciting. Here is Mr. Bach. Mr. Bach, you are the most famous composer of the Baroque era. How does that make you feel? Well, pretty surprised, really. By the time I died in 1750, my music was completely out of fashion. No one was playing it anymore. My sons, Carl Philipp Emanuel, Wilhelm Friedmann, and Johann Christian, were much more famous than I was by then. Did you know I had 20 children? I did know that. The music written by your son, Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, is still quite famous today. My goodness, you must have great stories from all your years in the music business. Really, I have worked in churches, Lutheran churches, for most of my career, so I don't have the kind of travel stories that someone like that Mozart character can tell, but I do have fond memories of one particular trip I took. Frederick the Great, the King of Prussia, not the more. Well, Frederick the Great invited me to his palace in Potsdam. I went to visit him in 1747. It was a long trip in those days, 20 hours in a carriage. Well, I arrived in the evening, just as Frederick and his musicians were getting ready to play their evening concert. That Frederick was an excellent flutist and played lots of concerts there in his palace. Well, when Frederick found out I was there, he cancelled the concert and asked me to try out his 7 forte pianos. Those were absolutely the latest in piano technology back then, and they were something to see. He had them each in a different room, so I went from room to room playing them, followed by King Frederick, his musicians, and a bunch of other people who were visiting the court that day. Finally, I asked him to give me a theme, or a melody that I could improvise on, sort of like your modern jazz players do today. Although, in the style of my time, of course. I improvised and had a great time. When I got back home, I wrote out that theme and some tricky variations on it, and wrote a separate sonata for flute and violin. Remember, the king was a flute player. And sent them to him as a thank you gift for that wonderful evening. Those were the days. I wonder whatever happened to that piece. Mr. Bach, don't you know it's a very popular piece of chamber music today? We call it the musical offering. Well, that's good to know. It makes me sad to say this, but my music was forgotten by the public for many years. That's true, but a nice young composer named Felix Mendelssohn came along in the 1820s and sort of rediscovered your music. It has been very popular ever since. Well, now that's nice to hear. I'm sure it is, and I'm also sure that your music will never be forgotten again. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye. Auf Wiedersehen. Until next time, boys and girls, on Music History with Ms. Berman's Mobile Music Classroom. Bye.